This is a cliffside lure, an aggressive subspecies that lacks the bioluminescence of its counterparts, relies on stealth, camouflage, and ambushing. This small lure has just left its family, as it is a male and was the second of two brothers, causing him to be the outcast. He must now go on this journey by himself and learn the ways of the world alone. The lure splashes into the water, planning on going on a small swim to look over the area. The lure quickly grabs a couple of fish, tearing into them and chomping into their scales. He takes his food to the bottom of the ocean and proceeds to gulp down the remainder of the fish's body, gnawing on the last of its bones. He then notices a very bright small fish swimming. Would it be a threat to his temporary territory? He had no idea what this thing was. It was best for him to kill it. He slowly climbed onto the large rock that was protruding out from the body of water. As he was cold-blooded, it was only natural that he would bask in the warm summer's waves. The small lure is now at the edge of a clearing, staring at a small bright creature near a bush. He was curious, but not fearful. He approached it. He circled the meat that was laying near the creature, calling with different calls to see how it reacted. The other hatchling only lightly called back in a friendly manner. The lure was no longer interested and decided to walk off into another area. The lure surfaced at the start of the pond and noticed a small bird relentlessly trying to gain flight out of the water. It was an easy meal that this lure needed to grow. He easily snatched it and tore into its feathers quietly. Lure was now in his teen years and was quickly outgrowing his home that he had once fit comfortably in. He swam around his territory once again, scoping it out, although this time he would not be coming back until he found something else to occupy his interest. Eventually, he reached the redwoods. The night was quiet and crisp as his claws sunk into the mud near the pond he was beside. He stalked a Filmora, a large mantis creature, silently, although the creature must have sensed him as it ran off quickly. It was now morning. The lure had caught scents in the air of another lure. It was undoubtedly a female. He edged the side of the desert, hesitating to go further, but with a potential partner over the horizon, he needed the food now more than ever. He called out loudly, attempting to follow the scent of the other lure that was nearby. He moved around one of the ponds, and finally he had found her. The other lure called out to him happily, and he placed the freshly caught food in front of her. He then lays down, showing that he has no intentions of being aggressive. They are now partners and will travel together. Luckily, they are both cliffside lures, so they will not have any complications with aggression or any significant personality differences from one or another. They were now travelling back to his old home. Before they reached their destination, they came across a dark fish that was bobbing atop the water near them. It would be more food than a usual fish, so he swiftly went after it. With the help of his partner, they easily took the fish down and celebrated for only a moment before continuing their journey back home. They eventually made it, but now the lure was an adult and could hardly fit in the home he used to occupy comfortably. It was time to move and find a new home. As the lures looked for a place to live, they moved up on a hill and decided to bask for a little while. The Kendial walked near them, completely uninterested. As the lure entered the water to obtain his food that he had previously laid in the pond to hide it, he noticed another dark fish eating away at him. He attacked the fish with brute force, throwing it aside and calling in celebration. As they left the pond, they found another creature. This one was a terrifying herbivore with the name of Truthful Behavior, but we'll just call it a truth. They took bites of the truth, but were unsuccessful in taking it down in the end. It was now winter. These cliffside lures were going to need to migrate to the floral cave to keep moisture and heat in their bodies. They ate the rest of the rotting food they had left over from their last hunt. But soon after, they had found another small creature and hunted it successfully. They made their way into the cove and looked around cautiously, staying alert for any potential danger. They quietly stalked a limbering Kuragosk that was making its way towards the cove. At night, they took the opportunity to hide in the flowers and wait around for another creature to walk by. Eventually, the same Kuragosk came towards the floral cave again, but this time, the lure was hungrier than before. He skidded down the cove's side, heaving himself quickly towards the Kuro. He grabbed a hold of the Kuru's tail, injecting his teeth into its skin and clamping on with his gigantic claws. While he was thrown off of the Kuru, the female lure quickly gained haste and delivered the final blow. Again, they called in celebration of their intense hunt. It was now summer. The two lures would nest together, and this would be their territory until their child hatches out of the egg. Here, the lure is rubbing his scents on the nearby trees. Any predator or other lure that comes near will smell this and the other lure's scent, and more than likely will not go any further into the territory. While the female lure gathers twigs, leaves, and branches for her nest, the male goes from tree to tree, making sure the scent is very prominent to keep them both safe. The male, now having the responsibility of feeding a nesting female and a future child, sets off to find food for them, as the food they have has already started to run out. As he walks for days, he slowly and hesitantly steps into the desert, desperate for any food that he could possibly find. He comes back fruitless, but needs to check on his partner. he follows a set of footprints into the desert, quickly gaining scent of another creature nearby. He curls around a corner of a dune, then swiftly runs after the creature. Biting onto its neck and bringing it to the ground. This would be enough food to sustain his partner and child. When he made it home, he noticed that the lure had already hatched from the egg. He called and brought the food over to his partner, pushing it towards her. As another winter creeps up behind them, they migrate together to the cove, where it would become their temporary territory and where they would raise their child. Eventually, they made it into the cove, but there were other creatures who were a threat to the hatchling. With this in mind, the lure attacked them relentlessly. He managed to kill one, but was safe for now. As night crept upon them, they heard noise from within the flowers of the coves. They reluctantly looked around until they found another angel creature, which is called an Aries. The morning brought more Aries. The lure climbed up the side of the cove and growled, going after it once again. He would stop at nothing to protect his family. The Aries spewed a gold breath at them, making them blind and sluggish for a few seconds, but the lure powered through it, thrashing at the blurs that were flying around it, occasionally gaining a strike. After the fight, they all only relaxed for a moment, before they started attacking again. Tired of the relentless fighting, he grabs a piece of meat and dives into the pond below, safely making it into the water. He expects his family to follow, but when they do not, he goes back up to the top of the cove and ushers them back into the pond to avoid the attacking Ares. The lure bobs his head above the water and takes notice of a Vinru that dips its head into the water. The lure, being highly aggressive and protective over its young, grabs the Vinru and pulls it underwater. As the morning light filters through the cove, the lure throws himself out of the water and lunges at the Ares that are waiting outside of the pond, angrily thrashing and killing one in the process. The fog loomed over the cove as they stayed alert, looking for any creature that dared to challenge them at their most aggressive point. A keraku falls out of nowhere, zapping them mercilessly. As the female lure attempts to pull herself back into the pond after being attacked by many creatures at once, she dies. The lure grabs its child and puts them back into the pond. And attempts to pull the female lure's body back into the pond, unknowing she has passed. After only moments of laying down, an eruption happens. Now they had two things to get away from, the Ares and the meteors. The ground starts shaking violently, and the lure scrambles to his feet to nudge his child awake, pulling it out of the water and running around, escaping to the back of the cove with only minimal damage. As the eruption stopped, the lures headed away from the cove, avoiding any more confrontation from the Ares. the Lures successfully got away from the Aries and lived the rest of their lives in harmony. The Lure taught his child the ways of being a ferocious predator of both the lakes and the land.